Hello there and welcome to Doctor Who Radio Show. I'm That's The Way It Goes 09 and this is
Matrix Lord 212.
And in this episode we'll be talking, amongst other things, Barrowman's exit from the 50th anniversary, the status of Season 8 in 2014, also that picture that is almost like a clue of all the Doctors together, just by sheer coincidence in the same room, and most importantly David Morrissey, who once was the next Doctor and how he could possibly be the next Doctor. But first, two major scoops, one from Matrix Lord 212 and one from myself. So Matrix Lord 212, take it away.
Okay guys, this is coming from Digital Spy, actually. I'm sorry, no, Doctor Who TV UK. Alright, and it's going to be on every site there is, really. Now, and it says Matt Smith has been busy hyping up Series 7 and the 50th anniversary again, and he's making some very bold claims of his own. Speaking in an interview with SFX about the 50th anniversary, he said, "I've read the first draft. I think the whole of this season leads brilliantly up to what is the biggest event in the history of the show. I say that with no hesitation, really. He's on top form and has delivered a thoroughly exciting, epic, vast science fiction script. It's really exciting." And he's talking about Stephen Moffat here. He goes on to say, "We start shooting that very soon, and there will be a lot of surprises coming your way, let me tell you. A lot. It's one of those scripts that you read and you go, whoa, here we go. What he's done. What he has done with it. You wouldn't really want anybody else writing this, would you? He's a proper fan, and to my mind, one of the greatest science fiction writers around." And this is coming from Matt Smith talking about Stephen Moffat. Again, he goes on. Smith adds, it's about celebrating everyone who's been involved with it. All the wonderful actors. Now, pay attention to this. It's about celebrating all the wonderful actors that have taken part before me. And it's also about looking forward and saying, what can we do next? Where can we take it? I feel in a privileged position having had people like David and Chris, Tom, Patrick, John, William Hartnell, great actors behind me. And to be a part of the show that's still going, that has an audience of about 77 million people worldwide. I love this show, and I'm really honored, actually, without sounding too like a crazy voice. Oh, how important, what an amazing thing. I am an incumbent doctor, what a privilege. I mean it genuinely. It inspires a humility. I suppose because it's about all of us who got it here. Do you know what I mean? Yes. It's 50 years. And basically he's saying that, maybe giving a big hint that there will be the classic Doctors involved in the show. I find that that's the biggest hint that they've given, that they're actually going to acknowledge the classic series, the original series, the same series really, and have the same actors a part of this while springboarding ahead into a new chapter, as Stephen Moffat said. And there's also
I wonder, celebrating the history of the show, so this isn't just going to be another 3 Doctors or 5 Doctors. This is going to be something special to reflect the uniqueness of this milestone.
Yeah, I would think it would reflect all the Doctors as well as a future Doctor, maybe. I mean, because they are talking about it being like Chapter 1, continuing on with a new story, a standalone special, but yet is connected and brings the best elements of all 50 years. So it just, I get the feeling they are going to be in it, but I just don't know anything to do with the villain. And that you got a good villain.
No details about that at all. I've been looking, and not purposely, just sort of, flicking through Dean of Geek and all those sort of sites, and I haven't been able to find one single even hint of the villain particularly.
Yeah, there's no villain. And PlayStation Network has a whole thing on Doctor Who that's going to be part of the PlayStation Network video game system, where you could be the Doctor and you could film episodes with this little Sims of a Doctor Who TARDIS and villains that they throw in, and you could basically make your own episode, make your own Doctor with voiceovers.
One way you get to beat up Michael Grade several times in a row.
It's coming from Digital Spy, so that too.
Wow. Oh yeah, Digital Spy, that's a really good site. I just wonder whether it might be perhaps one big story where each Doctor has, it sort of covers each era, which is all part of, I don't know how to describe it, like built-in anthology, where it's sort of, it's not just an episode in the present, but spans the whole history of the show with some underlying theme that holds it all together, like a character or something like that.
Right.
I wonder.
I'm also wondering too if there was any footage that was filmed by Russell T Davies with Elizabeth Sladen, because there was rumors going around that she filmed something knowing that she was going to pass on for the show, and we don't know if it was to do with the 50th anniversary or it was to do with her show, but supposedly they did film something, and I'm just very curious what it is.
Well, she's not going to be doing anything anytime soon, is she?
I know, but
sadly.
No, passing on, she filmed something, I think, in character as Sarah Jane Smith.
Yeah, so an entire 90-minute thing where every single Doctor's featured somehow, perhaps starting off, showing us finally what happened the day he left Gallifrey and why, then Totter's yard, and then the second Doctor's here, then his time during exile, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not just an episode like the 3 Doctors or 5 Doctors, it's actually going back to the past of the show itself and a story about the show, and sort of, I can't really describe it. It's like
basically bringing in the new fans to explain.
It's like a bio of the Doctor himself, if you know, like those American TV type things.
Right. Just picture high definition graphics returning to Totter's Lane, and showing some of the old companions, new companions, old Doctors, new Doctors, a villain, and basically getting fans to be a part of history from 50 years ago till today and tomorrow.
Well, there's this thing on, I just describe now as Facebook. I don't know why I replied to this person, but in regards to that picture with all the Doctors, someone was saying that Colin Baker doesn't look like the 6th Doctor anymore, and I said, well, you look like him, and this fan seemed to get annoyed by that. I was dressed up as Mrs. Doubtfire, and I said, yeah, you look like you still are. But another person pointed out that perhaps they could CGI some of the Doctors to look younger. I mean, they do that on the front of magazines, with Photoshop. You have photographs of, on magazines, sorry for interrupting you, where they use Photoshop to actually get rid of blemishes and stuff.
Well, did you ever see the X-Men movies?
Yes, I did, yes.
Yeah, the last X-Men movie, they had the computer generation, like they had the images of Patrick Stewart from like 20 years ago, and basically he was able to film, I think it was in the Wolverine movie too.
Yeah, he came out of a spaceship or something like that, and it was
Patrick Stewart with the old voice.
Yeah, he looked sort of younger, very brief type thing.
There is the technology where they could have the old images of Colin Baker with his new voice, and you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference, probably.
That's true. It's sort of like the reverse of what they do with Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Instead of,
it's like a video game. Effects. Yeah, you'll be able to put his, almost like an animation, where you'll see the classic Colin Baker, and they'll computer generate his mouth, and he'll be talking from his own voice, and they could do something like that, like an avatar or something. So
they could have the same sort of motion tracking that Andy Serkis does for Lord of the Rings, with the balls. They could get the Doctors to wear something similar, and then afterwards in post-production just sort of alter the appearance just a little bit so it's convincing, but not too computerized, perhaps.
Right, if you could play computer generation on Star Wars with creatures and stuff, you could create a computer generated Doctor of his previous young image, and then have a voiceover, and you would be able to tell the difference.
Ah, I see. So you're not really creating a character, but you're sort of augmenting a character to a younger version, perhaps.
Right.
Ah.
Like they did with Patrick Stewart in a Wolverine movie. I guess the Wolverine Origins or whatever it was called.
The bad one. Wolverine Origins. The one with Deadpool, where it made absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to Deadpool's character.
Right, and Patrick Stewart, as Professor X, was in the helicopter coming out, and he was young.
Yeah, so quite simply, sort of CGI cosmetic makeup, really.
That's probably why they spent the whole money of Series 8 into one episode, because they're going to need all that special effects to bring the Doctors back, I guess, in their original forms.
With Colin Baker, though,
I'm sure
they could make him look thinner, couldn't they?
I guess they'll do it with all of them, They could do...
I was suggesting on that Facebook thing that perhaps they could have asked Colin Baker and even Peter Davison, paid them to lose weight before filming.
Well, you gotta understand something. This is only one episode. This is not like a motion picture movie where these actors and actresses get paid $10 million to lose weight. I mean, these guys, they're not going to give them like that much money and to all that trouble and everything only to appear in one episode. They're not going to do that. So.
Oh, Paul McGann doesn't need to. He still looks virtually the same as he did in the 96 TV movie. Bloody hell.
Absolutely. David Tennant still looks the same. I mean...
Yes, but with McGann, it's been 16, 17 years, and with...
Yeah.
Oh, blimey. I mean, seriously, he does... McGann is actually 50, And yet he looks no more than 35.
Right. And then we will really see the limits of what technology can possibly do with the Doctor Who 50th anniversary.
Anyway, now my exclusive news. Unfortunately for UK fans, it would seem that a book's been written covering John Nathan Turner's time as the producer of Doctor Who, where it details how he sort of took advantage of his position as, producer in his office, sort of trainees or young people visiting offices, especially if they happen to be young homosexual men. And some of them, at the time, this is in the 80s, the age of consent for homosexual men was 21 years old. And it would seem that he'd had certain little dilly dances with 17-year-old aged. That's the person who's written this book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a rather salacious thing, looking at all the... it's basically muckraking, really. Anyway, needless to say, the Mirror and the Daily Mail, I found out about this just by chance through Twitter, sort of late last night, have had this story, and it's angered people, because in the UK they had this huge BBC scandal with Jimmy Savile, where he wasn't simply sleeping with, girls 16, which is still... Well, it's not illegal. He was actually doing it with kids as young as 8 or 10 or something, and that was like 450 supposed victims over a course of 50 years or something like that. And there's no comparison. John Nathan Turner, according to the writer, never actually forced himself on anyone. He was, if they did want to, then his attitude was fair enough. But what's angered fans, and particularly Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor, who had bloody press at his fucking door first thing in the morning, is that they've blown this up, and it's shoddy journalism, sensationalist hysteria. I presume you've had... I don't think fans in America are aware of that at all.
I wasn't aware of the story, but it really stinks, because it's funny how all this stuff comes out when the show was they're not even around anymore. I think John Nathan Turner passed away, right? And
a week before the new series starts.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need negative publicity concerning right before the 50th anniversary. Like, if Matt Smith was leaving the show, he wouldn't announce it until after the 50th anniversary, because it would take away from it. Just like, Series 8 and all this other background noise, I don't think it's good for the show at all. So this is something that, people are looking to stir up trouble and stir up things just to get publicity and sell magazines and newspapers, and I don't think it's appropriate right now to try to hurt the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who with this.
Well, Colin Baker on his Twitter had, apart from saying thank you to hundreds of people showing outrage about it, he was actually pointing out at one bit that he's considering talking to his lawyers about it.
I don't even know how far that's going to go. I mean, if he had anything to do with it or whatever, but it's really something that fans really don't want to hear. I mean,
I think it might be because I think it might have been the Mirror or Daily Mail or someone who had a picture of him, of Colin Baker next to this whole thing, and it's the simple fact is, I pointed out on Twitter that 17 years old is not, for a girl or homosexual man,
you're talking,
a big deal.
This story's like 30 years old, right?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
I mean, you're talking 30 years old, so these people are now like 50 years old. Like, I mean, whatever. I mean, this is just something like, why bring it up now? Why not bring it up 50 years ago?
Because the guy who started the whole thing and probably sold a bit of his information in newspapers.
But you know what? This stuff should have been handled the day it happened, instead of it's like this guy's dead, and you're bringing this stuff up, and these people that that were involved in it are probably like in their 50s.
He can't sort of defend himself.
Or 40s. Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think Americans would be aware of it. The Jimmy Savile scandal was a huge thing. I mean, literally, it's tarnished the BBC, and they came under huge pressure, and like BBC propaganda, he's the one who tweeted this. That's where I discovered about it, to my shock and horror. Like I said,
has a big problem because of the BBC nonsense.
But he pointed out that because of the BBC's lack of response back when Jimmy Savile was doing it, and recently, the way they handled it wasn't very good. They basically left themselves open to being attacked by the press, and the press are looking for another sort of abuse scandal thing. Just because you've had a few dilly dances does not mean that you're a danger to the community. Unlike the person who wrote the book himself, that's how it all started, said, basically John Nathan Turner was completely benign. But the problem is, the newspapers are treating and writing it in such a shoddy, sensationalist way that it's almost, they're treating it like the end of the world or something.
Well, it's making it like the end of Doctor Who, and you know what? That's a story that's 30 years old, and with John Nathan Turner, and I think it has no relevance, or anything to do with, like, why are you bothering Colin Baker and all these?
He's got a book out. The whole thing, from the title of this book, is just simply dishing the dirt, and that's, like you said, Matrix, it just seems a bit odd. I've said this about the Jimmy Savile victims, so-called victims. Some of them were coming out about, this happened, etc. 40 years after it happened, and it's like, why are you bringing it up now?
Don't you know what it is? It's they need to sell newspapers and magazines, and it's something that if they were really concerned with the news, they would have covered it back then instead of now. And it's right now, I don't see it relevant. I mean, I don't know what they expect to happen other than to annoy like Colin Baker, because John Nathan Turner isn't around. So I mean, I don't even think, I think that the story should just end. I mean, we need to focus. Like Doctor Who needs to focus on the positive rather than the negative. You don't want it to be canceled again. So I think that we need to look forward in the future, like Moffat says, and we don't need to be bothered with stuff that's out of the realm of control.
A certain Captain Jack.
Yeah, I don't understand why he's being punished in this way. I mean, we basically had to read through this weekend for the 50th anniversary. We're filming Monday for the 50th anniversary. Everybody knows who's supposed to be in it already. And is this a means to make an example of someone where, he was in it and now he's not in it? And his sister even said that the BBC were pissed. So, do you punish the guy? I mean, this guy loves Doctor Who. This guy changes his whole schedule around for Doctor Who and Torchwood. So why would you... the fans love Captain Jack. You know what I'm saying? So why would you throw this guy out of the 50th anniversary? I, for one... it could be two things. One, he is in the 50th anniversary, and the only way he gets to keep his job is if he flat out lies, which I'm hoping that's the case. And I'm leaning towards that he is going to be in the 50th. and the other case where the BBC just fired him to punish him, and I'm totally against that at all. I'm totally against it.
Yeah, he'd basically been on British breakfast time TV saying more than perhaps he should have done, and then, as you said, his sister pointed out that the BBC were generally peeved with him, and on Twitter he said himself that he was not going to be in the 50th anniversary, he said with a stutter, and it just seemed a little bit harsh. Is it possible that he might have asked for too much money? Bear in mind this is the BBC.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think he asked for too much money. I think he would have took a pay cut to be in it, to tell you the truth. I think David Tennant too would have took a pay cut. Yeah, first of all, you have Peter Jackson coming out saying that he would do Doctor Who for free as directing an episode of Doctor Who for free. He says, but he wouldn't mind them paying him with a Dalek. Which, what does it cost to make a Dalek? A couple $100, $1,000, or I don't know how you convert it in pounds. But John Barrowman would fly from America here to do that. I mean, the guy from Arrow basically said that he would let him and Alex Kingston come over to film because he's a big fan of Doctor Who. So, I mean, I don't see how money would be a factor at all. I think it's just that maybe he's lying. Maybe he is in a 50th. But if he's not, then all the fans are going to be pissed off. Yeah, you don't have a script that you're ready to film in less than 24 hours and then you fire the guy from the show. So I don't believe it. I think that he is doing it, and this is the only way he can save his job, where he's lying that they want him to lie, that he's not in the 50th anniversary. I mean, everybody knows who's in it already because they've been doing the read-throughs these past 2 weekends. They've built the sets last week, 50th anniversary. Last week they built the sets. And they did a read-through last weekend, and whoever couldn't attend are doing the read-through this weekend. And now they are filming tomorrow. So in your case, it's just a matter of hours away, I guess. But in my case, it's tomorrow. So he knows he's in it. I think he's in it. I think it's just a PR move that BBC want him to make. So that way, he does the right thing and he gets to keep his job by lying.
Well, I don't know. I'm getting a bit confused with it, really, but I don't know, it just seems a little bit paranoid that they're not willing to confirm anyone in it, because they could afford to confirm 1 or 2 people. But maybe it's more to do with the fact that they've not really got it underway when they should have done.
Yeah, I think that the planning was terrible. For Matt Smith's contract to be up during the 50th anniversary, it's bad planning. Did the read-throughs this past weekend that we're in now. They're still doing the read-through today. They had the read-through last week. They built the set like last weekend. They built the sets this week. So he wouldn't know if he's in the 50th anniversary or not already, because he wouldn't have read his script already. So I think that he is in the 50th anniversary. I think they told him to lie.
I just think it might be possible that some people might not want to do it if they can't reach their preferred contract negotiation, because there are egos and there are payments for it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with money. Like I said, he has come off as a Doctor Who fan himself. He has made every effort, even though he's in the United States filming Arrow show, he has made every effort to come over and film whatever they need to, because he wants to be part of the show. And even we have people like David Tennant who would probably do it for cheap. We have Peter Jackson, a big Hollywood director that will direct the Doctor Who episode as long as he gets a Dalek. He said he'd basically do it for free, but he would like a Dalek in his possession for his collection. So, it's just, if you have all these wonderful actors and directors want to be a part of your show, I think you would bend a little bit. And I think that in John Barrowman's case, they told him, okay, well, you jumped the gun and you said you're in the 50th anniversary. Now tell everyone you're not. And then they leave him alone, and then he's filming and everything's good.
So it could be a publicity stunt. But they have to be careful. They have to be careful they don't piss off fans, because they might, I don't know, refuse to watch it, perhaps, or something like that.
This will piss off fans. This will.
Okay. Now, something I noticed through Facebook was that there was a picture of Doctors 5, 6, 7, 8 and 10, David Tennant of course, all, I'm not sure where they were photographed together, but it seemed a bit of a coincidental picture to have, well, literally a week before the broadcast of, the first proper, 50th anniversary story. So, I don't know, what do you think? You've seen the picture.
I think that, alright, this is what we do know, which all these sites are lying, okay? Like I said, they did the read-through of the script for the 50th anniversary last weekend.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, they built the 50th anniversary sets. Yes. Today, yesterday, Friday, they did a final read-through. So it's a good point that they are all part of the 50th anniversary, and even Tom Baker, I believe, too, that they're all they took pictures together because they basically are doing the 50th anniversary, and I think that they're going to do it, and I'm happy, that finally we get them all together this one last time, and I think it's a good thing. Even David Tennant is growing his sideburns back, so.
Well, it's a brilliant picture. So I presume this picture is from the read-through.
I think it's outside the read-through, like I guess before, getting together, just like making like you don't know what to think.
Well, there's no possibility. I think it's ludicrous to think they just happen to be in the same part of the building, or
there's no way.
The only way they'd be, that many doctors would be in the same area, in this BBC or whatever building it was if they were there specifically for the 50th anniversary preparation, or filming, or simply contract signing, or discussing, what they could do. Because in the recent interview with John Pertwee in the latest Doctor Who magazine, part 2 of the interview, which I mentioned before, he pointed out that the Dark Dimension thing, which was originally supposed to be for the 30th anniversary, he wasn't hardly in it at all. The Brigadier was in it more than he was, and that's what irritated some of the other doctors apart from the 4th Doctor.
Right. I just think that finally I'll feel safe when it's finished filming, because there's a lot of chaos in the show right now that it's putting everything in doubt, and you know what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah. Well, the BBC itself is in a state of confusion, really.
And we have a contract. We have contract that's up. Matt Smith's contract is up around the same time as the 50th anniversary, and I found that bad planning. I mean, he should have either had finished his contract before or after, a year before or a year after, because to sign a new doctor all this at the same time, this was bad planning, I think.
I seem to recall reading that his contract had an extension. He's, sort of one where he would do 3 years or something like that, and then he would have the option to continue. And if,
from what I understand, he had a contract where he got paid $300,000 a year, which I don't know what that is in pounds, and that yesterday an offer was made to get paid $1,350,000, which if I'm off, I might be off by a few dollars or whatever. But the offer wasn't signed. Nothing was signed. I don't think he's going to stay, because with one movie, even a small part, he can make a couple of $1 million. So I don't think he's going to stay.
I think you're right. I think I recalled reading that it was like 200,000 or something per year. But like we were talking about the last time you were on this show, Matrix, we're sort of talking about what Ida Subscriber brought up, the fact that the BBC could be making more episodes of Doctor Who, but instead they make 13. And the same really with the amount of money he's been paid. In America, some actors are paid $200,000 per episode, not per season. Exactly. It just seems. And I was also reading earlier, in relation to what we're going to talk about next, season 2014, and all the sort of up in the air yet again, the fact that it's Doctor Who is now more popular in America and overseas than it's ever been before, both viewers and the amount of money it's making, and yet they're still spending pittance. They're still doing 13 episodes a year. I mean, seriously,
It goes back to the old saying: you got to make money, you got to spend money.
You got to speculate to accumulate.
You got to spend money to make money, and they're not spending enough, and we're getting less, and they're making less. So I think what they need to do is, there's another thing in Dow too, that Moffat had come out in the American Entertainment Weekly magazine and said flat out that he is nearing the end of his time with Doctor Who. He's not saying it's exactly now, but it's coming towards an end, which that could mean within the next year or so. And, it's a thing where now we won't even have a showrunner either. So everything is in doubt. We had the executive producer of Doctor Who leave before the 50th anniversary, Caroline Skinner, which was a bad thing to happen. And that is a sign of bad things to come, because I think everything's in chaos. I mean, you have no Series 8 this year. So how do you explain having a budget for Series 8 and you don't even use it? And you have one episode of the 50th anniversary, which, all right, maybe you count it as 2 because it's 90 minutes, but still, if you could have a showrunner concentrate on 14 episodes a year, 2 episodes should not take up the whole year. Plus a Christmas special. I mean, I say 2 episodes because it's 90 minutes, so that's basically 45 minutes is a Doctor Who episode. So it's basically like a 2-length episode, and then he's doing the Christmas special. So I don't understand. There should be less pressure, not more pressure.
Well,
unless of course he's basically,
they've been slowly, bit by bit, sort of leaving one by one. Even the Ponds, of course. Season 6 was 2011. Season 7 Part 1 was last year, and this year it's actually not a separate season at all, just simply the second half. It's like the BBC, just from the old fans' point of view, they're just doing the usual sort of trying to make it for as little as possible, but for making as much money at the same time. It's the same thing that Colin Baker said once, that you have people who are basically spending as little money budget wise but making a huge profit out of it each year.
You can't pull blood from stone, and you can't keep throwing less and less money to Doctor Who after 50 years and then expect it to shine more than it's ever been before. I mean, I think they're trying to basically make less and less episodes to see if they make the same amount of profit, and it's not working.
Well, that's what Colin Baker said. During his time, they were spending bugger all money on the show, but actually making much more, out of not just the series. Like I said before, you make lots of money out of different types of products. Selling the show overseas, reruns.
My thing is this, though: why are they spending so much time with Sherlock, where they're making the fans comfortable that they know that Sherlock's going to be on for the next 2 years? So why are they putting all the effort into Sherlock and not Doctor Who? Wouldn't you basically be concentrated on Doctor Who rather than Sherlock? I mean, if it's a thing where Moffat can't do 2 shows, then do 1 show. What is it? I mean, what if everybody have egos where they can't admit, hey, I could do 2 shows. If you can't, you can't. No one's going to look less of you for leaving 1 show because you want a better quality show. And I think that now, to tell the fans that not only did you rob them of a series this year, I mean, this Series 7 Part 2 is not for this year, it's from last year, okay? So you're telling us that basically, in essence, you're giving us 2 episodes this year, and then you want us to wait 10 months, and then you're going to give us who knows how many episodes. I think that is, someone needs to really look at this. I think the fans really need to look at this and say, hey, you know what? They're right, because they've been campaigning to save Doctor Who, to extend Doctor Who, to keep Doctor Who at 14 episodes a year or more, and we're getting less and less. I mean, there's no way to explain this. You get 2 episodes. You want to count the 50th anniversary and it's 1 episode? Okay, it's a 90-minute 1 episode, and you've got a Christmas special, and that is it.
And now we're going to talk about Season 8, if there is one.
Yes, this also came on Doctor Who TV UK, and Jenna Louise Coleman was recently, she recently confirmed that she would be back for Series 8, saying that Matt Smith will be away not 1 month, but 4 months to make his movie. And then recently she came out and said that they're going to be filming, once he gets back, he's going to be filming the 50th anniversary now, up until May, and then he's going to make the movie, and then he's going to come back in September. They're going to film the Christmas special, and then after that, probably around October, they're going to be filming Series 8. Now, a new article had popped up today. Over the weekend it popped on, and it said that don't expect to see Series 8 debut until the spring or autumn of 2014. So we may have the Christmas special come out, and then we won't see Doctor Who until possibly if not the spring, then it could be we won't see it until maybe August.
I see.
Or September.
Early in this episode, we were talking about contracts and how the filming so far for the 50th anniversary special is going. Now, as you pointed out, Matrix, his contract hasn't really been handled terribly well, because everything's really having to be done in a hurried way. And of course there has been that story through several outlets, both newspapers and online versions of their newspapers, and Dina Geek, etc., suggesting that he'll regenerate in the Christmas special, so we might have a different Doctor in season 8.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you are the one that's setting up the contracts for the actors, why couldn't they just think and realize that his contract would be up during the busiest time of Doctor Who, the 50th anniversary? I would have set his contract to expire in 2014, but now they have to deal with not only getting the scripts together, but they basically skipped out on Series 8 for the 50th anniversary, which really shortchanges fans, because instead of getting 14 episodes, you really only get one, and you always get a Christmas special. So besides that, you have to have Moffat has to for 4 months, I guess, try to figure out who's going to be the 12th Doctor, and that takes up time. And then you have to basically change all your scripts that you had planned for Series 8, because that has nothing to do with the 11th Doctor, so you have to basically change everything around. So of course, before they film the Christmas special, we will know, they will know if Matt's going to stay or not, because that they would have to change the script for the Christmas special. I mean, if he's going to leave, they have to film the regeneration. If he's going to stay, they have to change the ending. So I do believe that, he had, from what I can translate with the pounds and the money, American dollars, he was getting paid around $300,000 per year, not episode like in America, per year. And the new raise that was given was, I guess, $1,350,000. And if he takes it, he'll get that every year. But I haven't heard anything about him signing it. Now, also,
wouldn't have any sort of hint from the BBC. If he was going to leave at the end of this year, you would have something similar, wouldn't you, with David Tennant?
I would think that if
they'd be making a big deal of it. They wouldn't be sort of... Well, they could sort of have it surprise people out of the blue, but logically, from a publicity point of view, I would imagine they'd have either final episodes, or the final adventure for the 11th Doctor, or I don't know, they would do a sort of, can you guess if he's leaving or not? He could be leaving, Doctor Who fans, or what? Oh, that's an idea. Sorry for interrupting you. Finally, you can't get any words in edgeways with me. I just had a thought. Perhaps they might actually have one of those sort of cliffhanger endings where you don't know whether he is actually going to die.
Like, why go through the nonsense if you want the fans to be focused on Series 7, and then after you want them to be focused on the 50th anniversary? But if the fans got to worry about contract negotiations, honestly, if he does sign the dotted line, then if I was them, I would announce it immediately, so that way fans wouldn't be boggled down trying to figure out if he's going to stay or not. If he's going to sign, and if he signs, say, okay, Matt Smith we got for another year, and we got Moffat for another year, and that would be the end of the story, buried until next year. I mean, you really want them to be focused on Series 7, then you want them to be focused on the 50th anniversary. You don't want fans to be focused on, creating chaos and doubt amongst the show.
Yeah, if you can have an anniversary story, it would be one hell of a revelation and a big departure for the series if the current Doctor became the ex-Doctor not long afterwards.
You don't want people to take away from the 50th anniversary. You don't want them to be like, okay, we know Matt Smith's leaving, so they don't really care about the story. I mean, that's the whole thing. This is something that's been building, so you want people to enjoy the 50th anniversary without having to worry about the major star leaving. So I would, like I said, this is the whole way this contract was handled is terrible, because I would have had him signed a year after the 50th anniversary, so that way you wouldn't have to worry about it.
It has to be said, though, this isn't the first time that they've had a uncertainty about the actor, because of course there was Colin Baker, who was given the option to return to do one last story in suddenly, which meant Sir Etta McCoy had to don a wig, so they could be filming two versions with it, one where he doesn't regenerate at all and one where he does, so they can easily sort of film the bit where he does regenerate and then sort of, post-production add the whoever it is literally onto it. But
from what I understand, Series 8 was written with the 11th Doctor in mind. From what I understand, that Stephen Moffat had written treatments for all the episodes, or going to hand out assignments to his writers to do with Matt Smith. Now, if Matt Smith leaves, that means that all that stuff's in the garbage.
That's true.
You start off from scratch. So that's why I guess they really want Matt Smith. But like I said, you know what? Every week is a different story. One week, Matt Smith, like most of the time, Matt Smith looks like he's going to leave. Then all of a sudden, he looks like he's going to stay. Then it looks like Moffat's going to leave. So who needs to be talking about this nonsense? Why don't we talk about Series 7 and the 50th anniversary? So they really need to handle this and get these contract negotiations settled so we can focus on the show and the 50th anniversary.
It might be a bit of a bum note, really, Season 8, if you think about it, because well, let's face it, we can all sort of expect something absolutely mind-blowing for the 50th anniversary, can't we? And it might suffer simply in the same way Season 21 was after the party of the 20th anniversary. This would be, once you've gone on such a big high, it'd be like the Peter Davison era, sort of suffering from fallout from the golden age, so to speak, of Tom Baker's time. Sort of you had that roller coaster, one hell of a party, and then afterwards.
See, if I was the BBC, okay, that we got cheated out of a whole series this year. The money we don't know where that money went, right? So, and if you're going to say that you spent the whole series of 14 episodes money on one episode, that's ridiculous. So what I would do is I would give Matt Smith, let's say, $2 million. Not even, because you know what, they're so underpaid, it's not even funny. And give him $2 million and for 14 episodes, and make it like a 2-year contract where he will be gone by 2000 and I guess it would be 2015 in the end, and really get like 28 episodes out of him. You know what I'm saying?
David Tennant was originally actually asked whether he wanted to stay on for the 5th season, and he did have meetings with Moffat, and he was at one point going to stay on. And some of the scripts, like Robot, was very sort of pertwee still, with units and stuff. And some of the stories for Season 5 that were, of course, with Matt Smith eventually, were originally for David Tennant. So, is it possible, do you think, that they might do like a compromise? Smith does.
I'm going to lean towards.
If Smith wants to leave, do you think they might say, well, at least consider doing some TV movie specials to sort of exit your Doctor, just like they did with Tennant?
You know what? Matt Smith was just on the cover of Entertainment Weekly. He's just been on the cover of magazines as of the past couple of weeks. He's doing one movie. I would think, if I was Matt Smith, I would sign officially one more year with Moffat, because you can't just jump into Hollywood. It's a progression into there, and one little movie it doesn't mean that now you're going to be jobless. You know what I'm saying? I mean, David Tennant jumped into there, and now the roles are just not there. Okay, so you got to have something to fall back on, and right now, if I was Matt Smith, I would sign on, because he just started coming on magazine covers now, so that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean like they're going to give him this massive role where he's going to be supporting himself. I think honestly, Matt Smith should just sign the dotted line with Moffat and do another year of Doctor Who, and in that time maybe have something in the contract where he could film 14 episodes, but they can do it in a quicker manner, because the shows in America, like, they could have 16 episodes of Walking Dead, but it's taking like 2 years to film 14 episodes of Doctor Who, when Russell T Davies did 3 shows with 14 episodes of Doctor Who, Sarah Jane Smith's Adventures, and Torchwood, and you mean to tell me that you can't even get 14 episodes in a year now? So I would, if I was the BBC, I'd start throwing in the money that they've been using from Doctor Who back into the show, and I would throw a double amount of money back into the show to get the writers in to film this stuff and get it done quicker.
Well, to be fair to the BBC, as a son of the USA, you probably don't understand the BBC or British television as well, because the amount of money in Hollywood is way more than the BBC can ever dream of. It's not just the BBC being skinflints or Scrooges. They have less money to play with, and really, I think slowly over the last 20 years their profile has diminished as well, because you have first satellite television like Sky, and then you have the internet.
Somebody told me that whatever the BBC makes in America has to stay in America, right? So why don't you just, if they make so much money, if they're the #1 show in the world on iTunes, and if they're making so much money in America, why don't you go with what Matt Smith said? Film a whole series of Doctor Who in New York City, so that way you use that money that it's generated in America, you film over here, and then you debut it in both America and UK. I mean, I don't understand why they can't do that.
Yeah, it's a bit curious that the last time we were in this position where it was becoming huge in America, bizarrely enough, was around the time of the 20th anniversary, and then the troubled years of Colin Baker's time. You had John Nathan Turner and Colin Baker and others going over to huge conventions in America. So do you think it's possible that this might be another afterwards? To
tell you the truth, like, I really don't want to see Doctor Who silent for 10 months. Because, I used to work in retail for like almost 20 years, and, there's a thing about supply and demand. Like, the fans demand to see Doctor Who, and the BBC has to supply it. Well, they're not supplying it, because they expect them to go a whole year almost without Doctor Who, sometimes 10 months, 9 months. So if I was the BBC, I would do something crazy. Like, if they can't get Matt Smith to be the Doctor, and if they want to keep him, who's to say why can't they have the Lost Adventures? Why can't you sign David Tennant for a whole season, or Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor, or the previous Doctor? Why don't you get a whole series and focus on the classic Doctors with new adventures and throw that in there? And then you could also do Matt Smith at the same time. In other words, rather than do a spin-off show, rather than, let's say, they used to have Sarah Jane Smith Adventures and Torchwood, why don't you have 2 Doctor Who shows, and it's basically the same show but extended? In other words, you get commissioned 14 episodes of Doctor Who, and then you get commissioned 14 episodes of the missing series of Doctor Who.
I've often sort of in my imagination sort of pondered about that. I just years and years ago, I used to have this sort of fantasy of there being a Doctor Who series with the current Doctor, and perhaps like you said, past Doctors series featuring a previous Doctor.
My suggestion is Russell T Davies handle, let's say, the second show, where it would be focused on the classic Doctors all the way up to David Tennant down to the first. I mean, why can't Russell T Davies help him out and do 14 episodes of different Doctors, and then they can just film that thing with Matt Smith, and then in 1 year maybe, rather than have no Doctor Who, you could have 28 episodes of Doctor Who. I think that would make sense.
So let's think. Right, let's just moving on to our next and last subject. Let's just say that Matt Smith will leave either in the Christmas special or do one more season for 2014, whatever it is. And recently I've read on more than one occasion the possibility that people thought it was going to happen in the newspapers, etc., and the fans, and one of the names that kept cropping up, oddly enough, was David Morrissey, who played Jackson Lake, the man who thought he was the Doctor in the story The Next Doctor. Could it be possible that the Next Doctor this time round really will be the Next Doctor? And most importantly, as I've mentioned to Matrix, sort of, off screen, so to speak, does that mean that him being a person thinking that he was the Doctor but he wasn't was a mistrick? They could have had him as an actual future self of the Doctor, hire him as the 12th Doctor, and it would make it perfect sense.
Well, it all depends on The Walking Dead. I mean, I didn't get to see yesterday's episode yet. There's 2 more episodes this season. But if his character of the Governor dies, then sure, I guess he would be open to returning to Doctor Who. And I think he's a great actor. I would love to have him return. I don't know if you watch The Walking Dead, but he plays the Governor, and he's a real villain there. So it would be funny to see him play the Doctor as the hero again. And it would be a different twist, and I think it would bring attention to the show because he's established here on one of the number 1 show in America, which is
precisely. He's already you don't have to build his profile in America because he's already done that.
I don't even know if you've seen The Walking Dead, but I think you should, because right now it's the number 1 show in America.
Wow.
And just imagine you have this guy that's known here going back to where he came from, Doctor Who, and filming as the Doctor. That the show would be the biggest show there is, beyond what it is now. It would be magnified times 100.
Really?
Really, absolutely. Because
how popular in America, from your point of view, is The Walking Dead?
It is the number 1 show right now, The Walking Dead.
Like Heroes was once.
The absolute number 1 show in America is The Walking Dead. And if you have that character, that actor, David Morrissey, come back to Doctor Who to take on the head title of the Doctor, it would be explosive in America.
He has actually said, when interviewed, that he would like to be in the 50th anniversary. And if Matt Smith does leave, it would make perfect sense, because the very first scene, that little teaser you saw at Comic Relief or Children in Need, the very beginning where he's at the door and it's banging and you've got Rosita and he says, "Rosita, my sonic screwdriver." He was perfect. In just a few seconds he was the Doctor.
We've seen this before where Princess Astra was played by Lila Ward, right?
Yes.
And then Romana took that form. So we have seen that before, where the Doctor can take that form, and it could be played by David Morrissey. And I think that if that actually happened, it would be the biggest thing for Doctor Who, and I think it's a big, fresh start again for the show. I think I would vote for it 100%.
It's happened so many times before. Like you said, it happened with Romana. She was the actress.
Princess Astra.
Yeah, and then of course it was Colin Baker as Maxwell.
Right.
And then he became the 6th Doctor. And then you had the lady who would play Martha actually playing someone who was actually apparently supposed to be Martha's cousin or something.
Right. I think that would be explosive for the show. I think that would take Doctor Who to new heights. But that's all depending on if he's... See, I don't know what's going to happen with The Walking Dead, if he's still going to be on next year. But if he does leave the show, then it would be explosive. It would be epic for him to return. And you know what I would suggest to you, my friend, is that you watch The Walking Dead series 1, 2, and 3 and watch it in order, because I would like to see what you think of the show.
Oh. I still think it was if it actually did happen, then the next Doctor not actually being really the 12th or whatever Doctor, a future possible Doctor, would have been a big missed opportunity, because it would have been an absolutely brilliant idea if, that would have been, whether he was the Doctor or not after Matt Smith, David Morrissey in that story being a future Doctor would have been a rather clever twist, wouldn't it?
It would be a new respect for that episode.
Yeah.
And people would go back to that episode and they would like it a lot more, I think, because it would turn out that he would become the Doctor too. So I think, you know what, he's got my vote. And not only would you have David Morrissey as the 12th Doctor, but you would also have Peter Jackson, the director of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, said that he would do the show for free. He would direct the show for free if they gave him $1, which, what does it cost, like $1,000 or something?
Yeah.
Not even that much money. And you would have the recognition of from America of Peter Jackson directing David Morrissey as the Doctor. That would be ridiculously huge.
Holy crap. Well, he would also, oddly enough, have experience of working with fellow Moffat actors.
Right.
Who, of course,
right, they did Tintin. And you know
Cumberbatch and the guy who plays Bilbo Baggins, of course.
And I could honestly see David Morrissey from an 8 series of Doctor Who with Jenna Louise Coleman. I could see them making a movie based on his Doctor with Jenna Louise Coleman in the States with Peter Jackson. I could see it all fitting into place. And Steven Spielberg, because Steven Spielberg had come out and said that he loves Doctor Who and is a fan of Stephen Moffat. So
he did say that he wanted to be in the 50th anniversary, and I can't imagine he'd want to just return as, Jackson Lake.
For the BBC to not seize this opportunity would be ridiculous. I mean, you need to get David Morrissey, you need to get Peter Jackson. I mean, if you have someone like Peter Jackson offering to do your show for just about free, I would take it. I would take it. It would be arrogance and ego if they didn't.
And he's been working with Sylvester McCoy recently. You could have David Morrissey and Sylvester McCoy in a sort of modern day version of the two Doctors, perhaps.
Right. You would have more team ups or crossovers with classic Doctors, because he'd be more friendly to do it.
He could even perhaps ask, Jackson could even, this is just fantasy talk, but he could, if you got Morrissey as the Doctor, Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, he could perhaps convince one of his friends, Cumberbatch from, Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit movie, or
Martin Freeman,
or Watson, or he could perhaps even get some of the people who's worked with him on Lord of the Rings to do it. Like,
I tell you right now, if Morrissey comes with Peter Jackson, this will open the door for more American actors that are well known to just want to come over to the show. And probably do it, and just to do it to be. I mean, look, Timothy Dalton, my God, you got all these wonderful people that are doing Doctor Who now. I mean, it's like it's bringing the attention to the show where the in thing to do, the hot thing to do today is to be on Doctor Who. I mean, we've even had people from Good Morning America's show that have been on Doctor Who, and it's just this is the thing that they should do now. I'm waiting for Patrick Stewart to be on Doctor Who. I can't wait.
Why not just go the whole hog and get David Morrissey along with the past Doctors and Matt Smith to appear in the 50th anniversary? Wouldn't that be clever? Because it always, every past Doctor would see the present Doctor as a future self.
You could do the 50th anniversary where he plays Jackson Lake, the human that had the knowledge. He still has the knowledge of the Doctor in his head, and you could and it could be a thing where you think it's not really the Doctor, but on camera it will be 12 Doctors, and then later on you find out he does regenerate into him.
Perhaps the Doctor's sort of dying, and he has to do a sort of master thing where Jackson Lake gives up his body to become the Doctor, since they're so mind meld sort of close to each other,
like a merger. Like they did with Gingy and the Monk. John Pertwee's era.
Well, that's all time we have on Doctor Who Radio Show, this mammoth Doctor Who Radio Show. But I have been That's the Way It Goes 09.
And this is Matrix Lord 212.
And until next time, basically before or around the time of the new series of Doctor Who, the building blocks towards the big one, the celebration of 50 years of a Time Lord and quite possibly the answer to the question, the first question that should never be answered, hidden in plain sight. Doctor Who.